This is Elliot Serrano and Jose Melendez coming to you from Dreamline Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thank you for joining us here on CCW TV, the Comic Culture Warrior video channel. We're now at the part that we call Last Rants, and Last Rants is when Jose and I talk about some other topic, either something that came up in our reviews or something that just pissed us off. And actually what kind of inspired today's Last Rant was a conversation I had with a female friend and a blog posting by one of the CCW Nation, Inside Man, who has an excellent blog, if you haven't been checking it out, called Swear All You Like. Literally, you can swear all you like. He swearolyouLike.com. He loves he has some really expletive-filled posts, which are fun to read. I had no idea that George Clooney was that talented a blogger. I had no idea. Because we learned on a couple weeks ago on DMAR's Sunday Funnies that Inside Man is actually George Clooney. Anyway. So, Inside Man wrote about fanboys and fangirls, or comic book fans in general, going into a comic shop that pretty much treats them like crap. You get pretty much maligned and abused. You get taken advantage of. We've had those stories told on the blog from time to time. We've had viewers say, "Hey, why did this particular vendor? It was the last issue of a particular book, and they wanted to sell it to me for twice the cover price."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was the last copy.
Yeah, because it was the last copy, and so on and so forth. Is that kosher? Can you do that? Should you do that? So we're finding we get more and more stories about sort of really shady practices going on within the comic shop community from time to time. This is not all comic shops, but...
And this isn't anything new. This is going on for decades.
It's been going on for a while. That's true. I remember as a kid kind of having the guys at the comic shop that I would go to kind of, try to job me a bit. I once had a comic shop owner demand that if I wanted a particular book, because I didn't have all the money for it, he wouldn't hold it for me. I had to leave a deposit. And if I wasn't back within a particular time to get the book, I lost my deposit.
What the fuck were you buying?
It was like a graphic novel. It was like one of those, I think it was like from one of those indie graphics, like graffiti. I forget who.
Fantagraphics?
Fantagraphics. Might have been one of those. But it was just a graphic novel. It was like $30. I didn't have $30 at the time. I had 10. And I just said, "Hey, can you just put this aside for me?" And he said he'd take my 10. I had to come back with the balance. And if I didn't come back like within a week or whatever, he kept the 10 and he sold the book to somebody else.
And you were dumb for...
I know. I told my dad about that later, and he was really pissed at me for doing that.
That's
in fact,
shady.
He was so angry, he said, he gave me the money and said, "Go and get that damn book. I don't want this guy ripping you off." So that sort of thing has been going on for a long time, which is unfortunate because...
That happens in all areas.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. I think we touched on that a little bit before in last week.
Well, yeah, we did, but we've talked about the horse swords with the ring, with people selling the rings and stupid shit like that.
Yeah, and variant covers and blase. But here's the thing. Blase. That's my new thing.
Yeah, it's been your thing.
But we put up with it. Comic shop patrons put up with it. You keep going back. And that was the whole point of Inside Man's post. Why do you keep going back? Why do you keep going back to a place where the guy might look at you like you're less than the piece of gum that he wipes from the bottom of your shoe? They look at you with total disdain. They don't treat you with any respect. They might make fun of other customers behind their back and letting you hear it.
Or they'll insult you after you tell them that the book that they recommended to you last week wasn't that good.
Do lots of stuff.
That was Micah.
Oh, that was Micah?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's pretty...
There seems to be this sort of imperious Rex attitude. It's like the friggin' comic shop guys are all modeling their behaviors after Namor.
Mm.
So why do you put up with that? So that was the one thing. Then the other question is, and this was when I had the conversation with my female friend, why don't you see more girls in comic shops? Why don't you see more girls in comic shops? And I'll tell you right now, and I have heard this story several times. I have had female friends who read comics, they say, I don't like going in the comic shops because I don't like the way they treat me there.
How are they being treated?
Sometimes they're being treated, they're being condescending. Sometimes the person who I dealt with, the comic shop she went into, they were downright hostile with her. Like, they didn't know how to talk to a female. Like, because she didn't know everything about a particular title, she was a dumb girl, and why does she, why do I have to explain all this to you? And issues like that. These guys, in some cases, who work at comic shops have a chance to meet a new customer, make a new customer, but because it's a female, they don't know how to talk to girls.
I just think they don't know how to talk to people in general.
But still, it seems you see this problem more and more with females in comic shops. I mean, there is this whole thing where guys in shops, and this happens anytime you have a predominantly male demographic in something. Happens in sports all the time. If you're on a baseball team, a football team, basketball team, go to a gym, any kinds of things where the place is generally male dominated, you do have that hierarchy within that whole social structure. In the sports, the more successful jocks look down on the lesser successful jocks, who look down on the weekend warriors, right?
Yeah.
Go into anything else. Go into a comic shop, you have the mega fanboys who look down on the dabblers, who look down on the casual fan. It happens. It seems to be the hierarchy. But the difference between sports and comics is sports, football, basketball, baseball, booming industries. So if they want to kick themselves, shoot themselves in the foot by alienating some fans, it's not going to hurt them as much. Comics, practically on life support when you think about it, cannot afford to alienate fans. You need as many fans as you can. You need the people who work in your local comic shops out there pulling people in, getting people interested in buying books, in reading books, in doing things. Now, I'm going to say this again. This is not a generalization. I don't want to make this a generalization of all comic shops, because here in Dreamland Comics, when I first came here, when I walked in the day before taping, there was a woman here, and she was walking around reading, and she didn't seem like she wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. I'm just saying, I have seen females come into the shop. You treat them with respect. The manager of Dreamland is a woman, very friendly person, very affable. She tries very hard to give a very good customer service. So it's not Challengers Comics on that the other shop in the city that I go to from time to time. Also very fan friendly. Lots of girls hang out there. My God, if you want to meet women, I say go there. But you know what? For as many good shops like Dreamland and like Challengers, I have been into 3 or 4 shops. Not so good.
Mm-hmm.
Dark, creepy, not so clean, not very well organized, boxes stacked here and there. You feel like you're walking in the Buffalo Bills basement, something like that. Or Pete's basement. That's a shout out to you guys. But anyway, creepy.
I totally agree with that. I always thought it was just me, when I would go to other comic shops that I didn't work at, and man, my place that I work at, the place that I manage, is so much fucking better than this place. I always thought that was just me being me, and you're so. But no, it's how it is. I mean, I don't understand. All right,
because it's retail. It's basic retail.
It is basic retail, and so as I was telling all you the story before. I actually worked and managed another comic shop for 10 years before I came to Dreamland here, and it was actually It was based in a shopping mall. And about 4 years into me being there, the owner, and we actually had 2 stores. The owner worked at one store, and I ran pretty much the mall-based store. And he wanted to kind of take some, get some data on who our customers were, what zip code they were from, so we can map out where we're actually getting, where our advertising is hitting, where we're getting people from, in age groups of people that we're getting, and gender. Just so we can see the results of what's been going on. Now, typical and this is old data from like 10 years ago. It might even be less now, but no, it's like 7 years ago. The percentage of female clienteles that comic shops would get on average, the country average was like 5 to 7%. 5 to 7%. And this is old data. Like I said, it could be worse now. Who knows? But when we did our surveys, every person that came up for 2 weeks, twice in 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 months, 4 weeks total. Every person that came up, when we would ring them up, because we didn't have a register, we had computer, and we just would put in the gender, we would guess their age bracket, and we would ask them if they would kindly just give us their zip code, just so we can see where we're getting people from. After we had done that, we had gotten the information back about a month later after this place that did the program for us compiled all the information. We found out that the amount of female clientele that we had at that store was 30%. 30%. It's
pretty
now,
good. Yeah.
And obviously it was a mall-based store, so that has something to do with it. The other thing that had to do with it...
Not only that, though, but you had purchases going on. I mean, it's one thing to have the traffic going on.
Right. These are people who bought stuff.
Who are actually buying things.
Exactly.
So that's a big thing there.
And this is the other big thing that the 30%, the reason why we had 30% is because I had been reading manga forever. Before I even started reading American comics, I was reading manga. And this was right when the boom hit, the manga boom. And I just talked to the owner, I'm like, we need to stock manga. This was like when Tokyo Pop started getting really big, stuff like that. And girls obviously read manga. We had just shelves and shelves of it. We always kept it in stock. That was one of the other main reasons why we had them. Now, and one of the other things that I learned too is that more girls actually bought alternative fiction stuff, small press stuff, more than superhero stuff too.
Right.
And there, like here, we have a big manga section here. Here, like there, we have a big alternative fiction section, not just superhero stuff. So there's a wide variety of stuff.
Right.
Other thing that this store and that other store that had in common, clean, vacuumed every day, nicely, it's well lit.
Right.
And all of those make huge differences. The other main difference, obviously, is that I have never been, just because of who I am, you guys know my feelings about certain things and about women in general. There's no reason to condescend to anybody, female or if they're a customer. Yeah, I don't get where that comes from. It's like every customer is valuable, and you just treat everybody equally.
Right.
So whenever I hear, Variant Girl has told me some horror stories about going into the shops. I just don't get where that comes from. And every time, I have a female tell me a story like that, or retelling me stories that females, it makes me so fucking angry because I just don't get it. I don't get it. Because obviously, I've been in retail 17 years, something like that. Not once has that ever been a factor.
Yeah. I get it to a certain point in that you have some folks, and again, it's a minority, but it's enough to make an impression. They take their power fantasies with them to work. And when you're that guy behind the counter at a comic shop, you are the king of the fiefdom, king of the castle, and you get to treat your minions any way you want. And there is a certain dysfunction within some fanboys.
Yeah.
They, again, have a hard time relating to people on a basic human level. No one wants to be treated like crap. No one wants to be teased. No one wants to be called names. No one wants to be humiliated. If you are the kind of person who can only feel better about yourself by putting down somebody else, guess what? You've got issues. And you find that a lot within the comic book fanboy community, because fanboys get picked on a lot by the jocks and the others, and then they, instead of taking that experience and saying, developing empathy from it and going, you know what, I knew how that made me feel, I'm never going to let that happen, I'm never going to do that to somebody else, they turn around and they lash out at others. So, that to me is my armchair psychologist, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever type diagnosis of that, and somebody give me a different opinion, because I, for the life of me, can't think of it unless The only other reason I can think of is that those comic shops are basically employed by sociopaths. And where do they
Which
find...
is probably a good call there. Have you seen some of these? I mean, I've been in comic shops, and to go back and maybe answer, why do people go to these shops? Some people don't have a choice. Some people live in small towns that have one comic shop, maybe two, if they're lucky.
Yeah,
within driving distance.
But
I mean,
you're right.
we live in
we
Chicago.
Live
we live in the suburbs, but I mean, there's like 5 shops out here in the suburbs alone. And then if we don't want to do that, we can drive into the city. And we have Chicago Comics, we have Quimby's books, we have Challengers.
Or you can do mail order.
Right, but I think a lot of people don't do mail order. And
these days, if you're willing to plan things out, if you're willing to do your research, and Locus Mortis talked about that on the blog. If you're willing to do your research, you go through previews. You can get previews if you want.
Yeah, Locus Mortis and Inside Man both
do mostly
mail
order. But Inside Man says he does spend hundreds of dollars in a comic shop. Right. He will go and buy like hardcovers and trades galore. Right. But I mean, you can. So it's not like there is no alternative. What it would behoove the comic shop owner to realize is that now the point you're wanting to make is very valid, or would have been, I would say, would hold more weight, let's say a few years ago, when the comic shop kind of had a monopoly there. You have like places like Dreamland Comics that will ship to you, so you can deal with the comic shop who'll mail stuff to you. So if you don't like the comic shop that's on the corner of your house because they treat you like crap, guess what? You can get comics from another shop, and they'll ship it to you.
And I think the biggest hurdle I think it is from going from that shitty comic shop to mail order exclusively is not being able to get your comics that day.
Yeah, get it like that, right. So, I mean, do you need your fix so bad that you're willing to be treated like shit?
I mean, we've talked about how comic book fans are creatures of habit. I mean,
that's true.
And not to get your books on a Wednesday, people just kind of have to build up to be able to do it. And then once you do it, then it just becomes...
So here's for those of you who have to have your books on Wednesday, here's my question. And you're having a hard time breaking out of this cycle, and you are in an abusive relationship with the comic shop. Riddle me this, Batman. When you buy that whole stack of books on Wednesday, do you really go home and read every single book that day? Because if you don't, it just might be you can wait a couple extra days to get your books, in some cases, cheaper, in better condition, and without the emotional baggage.
But here's the flip side to that.
Yeah.
Maybe their comic shop is so shitty that they need to buy all their books on Wednesday, because if they go on another day, they're going to sell out because the comic shop doesn't know how to order stuff.
Well, yeah. But that was the other thing, too, that Inside Man talked about. If you find yourself walking into a comic shop and the guy, it's a regular place, this is the guy that you've been to on a regular basis, and he knows you're looking for a particular book. You have asked for that book, and then he says, I'm sorry, I sold out. It's not that he sold out, it's that, guess what? He ignored your request and didn't order the book for you. So it's not, or they say, oh, we got shorted and we didn't have enough books, so we sold out.
Let me get, as long as the book is in print, and it's available from the one comic book distributor, it's not like all of the shops go to different comic distributors. We have one. We all deal with the same one. If the book is in stock, and you ask him if it's in stock, and you ask him to order it for you, it should not take longer than a week. It should not take longer than a week. If it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, guess what? You got fucked because they didn't order it for you. No. And you should probably just start going elsewhere.
And I get it all. I mean, I've had it happen to me here at Dreamland. Like, I'll come in, Lori will say, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't have it, or we didn't get it. It's on reorder. Or we're out of it. It's on reorder. If the shop owner says it's on reorder, it means they're getting it for you. And you're like, again, it doesn't take more than a week. And I've always gotten my book. If I couldn't get it that week, I'll get it the following week. So this whole thing where you got to get a book and the shop owner won't get it for you, it's a power trip.
Yeah,
or they're just dismissing you. And if they're just, like Jose said, if they're dismissing you, they don't want to get it for you, then take your money elsewhere.
I think we had I think this was on the blog. I think it was Mr. Wrestling. I think on the blog. I think it was him. If it was somebody else, I apologize. But he was talking about, because he bought the Batwoman hardcover like a month after it came out. He's like, oh, my shop finally got this in. I'm going to buy it this week. I'm like, dude, it's been a month. It's like, yeah, they haven't had it. I'm like, they should have that book every week. It's been available. And they were going to get it from them, and it took forever for them to get them. Yeah. Should not have taken them a month.
No, it meant
or 3 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah, it meant that they would forget.
Yeah.
They just didn't write it down. They wouldn't do it. So, if your comic shop is getting books every week, and again, everything goes through Diamond, so it's not like you got to deal with 6 different distributors or a different, whatever. It all goes through the same distributor. If they should be able to get something for you the following week. So don't put up with that crap. And for the few comic shop owners that actually watch this show, who I'm assuming are ethical, courteous, and for the comic shop owners that I deal with all the time that are exemplary for what they do, thank you. Thank you for doing business the proper way, because unfortunately
you're welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Unfortunately, there are enough knuckleheads out there who are kind of killing opportunities to make new fans.
It's bad enough that Marvel and DC are dumping shit out there, killing the industry, and then we have retailers out there who are just helping, drive that knife in just a little bit deeper.
And I'm telling you, I go to Borders, Barnes and Noble. Go to that manga section. Lots of girls. Lots of girls hanging out there. They're buying the manga. Why can't that traffic be in comic shops? Comic shops need that traffic. That's what I'm saying.
I've worked at 2 shops that have had that traffic.
I'm saying, but why don't these retailers understand that?
Well, again, that's the question I posed to you. I don't understand what goes through their minds. I don't understand. There are some retailers, obviously, who are just fanboys who just want to own a comic shop because they like comics. They don't want to deal with all the other ancillary bullshit like customer service. So I can see where that comes from, but I've never had that mindset. But then again, I worked in the biggest chain of Chicago back when I first started back in the early '90s. I actually learned from pretty good people, like how to manage a store, how to run a store, stuff like that. And so I don't know.
I guess in a way, what I should be saying is not so much, part of it is, hey, those of you who are committing these sorts of crimes against fandom, get your act together. But more so, for those of you who have been turned off by a particular comic shop, there are other venues. If you are a woman, if you were a girl, you went into a comic shop, you didn't like the way you were being treated, sorry you encountered that. But not all comic shops are like that. In fact, there are a lot of really good comic shops that you're going to enjoy going to. Don't let that one bad experience
unfortunately, you just have
off.
to keep looking for them.
Yeah, you got to keep looking, right. And, and there are comic shops that are owned by women as well. I mean, I know, we have this one here. Lori's a female. She's an owner. And, of course, Eric Troutman and his wife, writer of JSA, own their shop out in Seattle. So, you do find a lot of good shops where you will feel welcome. So don't let those bad experiences turn you off. The rant started with not understanding why this even happens in the first place. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. We're dying here. Comic shops are on life support. Both Marvel and DC had to be assimilated by multi-billion-dollar media corporations to keep going. If they weren't, if they didn't, Marvel and DC probably would be today on the same level as maybe IDW.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay?
I doubt it, but maybe.
Well, you never know. I'm just saying. But they on several occasions, they both had tremendous capital infusions put into them just to keep, again, licenses going. To keep friggin' licenses going. It's pretty ridiculous. Anything else?
Is the lecture over?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
The sermon hath ended. Let us pray. On that note, we'll end this here because we've got plenty of material. Thank you so much for bearing with us. I hope you enjoyed your double doses of episodes, especially your double dose of Last Rants last week. Hopefully we'll be able to fit this all into one episode. Maybe. Always be sure to comment either here on the CCW TV blog or, better yet, hop over here on the channel, or hop over to the blog where you'll find the comment section to be much more to your liking. In addition, not only will you find the episodes, you'll find other things like the poll of the week, the CCW open thread, weekend open thread, Manic Monday, Mellow Monday, whatever Monday it is. I discover so much new music on Mellow Mondays. All the different videos that people post on there. And you will learn the difference between J-pop and K-pop. If you check out the blog. I learned it.
And there's something new every week on there.
Every weekend. I think Rain is an incredible artist. That video where he's like the angel and the wings, awesome.
I thought we were going to end this thing like 5 minutes ago.
And we're ending it now.
Thank
so
you.
until next time, this has been Elliot Serrano and Jose Melendez coming to you from Dreamline Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.